Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We're talking again with Gary Pica. Welcome, Gary. And today's subject is the math and science of top MSP sales producers. And Gary's going to be presenting strategies to dramatically increase recurring revenue. So right now, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Gary Pica and enjoy.
Hey, thank you so much, Tracy, and I'm happy to be joined by Scott Parker, the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Enable. Hey, Scott.
Hey there. How are you doing today, Gary?
I'm doing great. We got a lot of awesome stuff to cover today. This is a webinar that I put together specifically for the Enable audience today. So I'm hoping everyone's going to get a lot of value out of it. And really, this is what we've been doing, right, with these insight sessions. And, working closely this year with SolarWinds to not just, you guys do a lot of work, and I work with a lot of your partners and helping, train them, but taking this information and really out to the marketplace. You guys have done a great job with the outreach of kind of sharing to the general community how they can build a better recurring revenue business, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the feedback on every webinar we've had you on has been incredibly good. During our partner sessions where they come down to see us, we've had several comments on the kind of content you're delivering. So obviously there's a ton of value there, and I'm super proud that we're able to bring this out to all of our customers.
So I call this session the math and science of top MSP performers. And, I want to talk a little bit about my progression in sales and why I call this the math and science. So, look, I go back 20 years in this industry when I bought an IT provider just outside of Philadelphia. And when I got there, if I was to categorize our sales performance, and I came into this from a sales career, and a pretty successful sales career in selling some software and other services. And when I got to my own business that I owned and tried to sell this recurring revenue, this MSP stuff that was brand new, I failed miserably. Like everything, all the logic that had worked for me in other industries when I got here, it didn't work. I mean, when I say didn't work, we were getting no results, right? None. And so some of the things we're going to talk about today about how to present value, as I started to figure those out, we started to make some progress. And I say we went from complete failure to total mediocrity pretty quickly. And that's what I call the quagmire of mediocrity. This was that point where we had progressed in how we talk to people and could get some results, but the amount of effort and energy that was going in to get the results was so out of balance that it was exhausting, right? And so the second step was to figure out really what are the drivers, what are the couple key drivers that can make this easier? What's the math behind this sales process? And once I combined, those two pieces, we went on to great success. We went from 0 to 7,000 endpoints under management, over $500,000 a month. The last year, and my business was acquired by Mindshift and then Best Buy, but the last year I had the business, or I like to say my first MSP, with just one outside salesperson and one inside salesperson, we sold over $130,000 of monthly recurring revenue. That's almost like $1.5 million business that we built on top of our business. And the next step was to make it repeatable, and that's what we're going to share today, to come up with a process that I could teach to hundreds of True Methods members and also use in my current MSP, because I'm a partner in another MSP for the last 4 years, although I don't work in that business. We have a 34-year-old young man who runs it, and so I'll share some of the stories, again, of what we've been through and where we are today with that. So just like you worked in an MSP before SolarWinds, this is all going to be real-world stuff today.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. It sounds like it mirrors a lot of my own experiences as well, so really interested to hear.
Awesome. So whenever I'm in front of people, and I was in front of 120 MSPs speaking last week, and I always ask them, is selling new MRR, monthly recurring revenue, your top goal? And out of 120 people, I'm saying 119 hands went up. And then I said, well, okay, if that's your top goal, how are you doing with it? And I said, let me categorize that. How many of you are, on average, able to add, at least a customer? Let's say you're adding $2,000 to $3,000 of monthly recurring revenue each month on average. And out of 120 people, about 10 hands went up. And then I said, that aren't True Methods members, and there was 3 left. So, Scott, the question I would want to ask everybody is, do you know any other business where everyone can agree on their top goal, but almost no one can do it?
That is a great question. Right? Yep.
So we want to answer why today, and we want to change your expectations. If that's you, and if this was in the beginning, the field of dreams, like if you build it, they will come, and they haven't, we're going to give you some things that you can think about differently, right, immediately after this, and move forward. So here's what I find. Top MSPs are more efficient. It's kind of like what I was describing, like when I started figuring out some of the model, it wasn't effective. In other words, we were working so hard to get the sales results. We were expending all this energy, and we felt like we were an inchworm, like we were just moving so slowly. But there is math and science that impact results, and if you can understand it and you can make your priorities the things that move the needle on a couple key things, you can set higher goals and you can make those goals achievable. So I want to start with 3 critical definitions and then give everybody a formula. So the first term I'm going to use today is FTA, and that stands for first time appointment. In other words, the number of first-time appointments is really critical metric. And Scott, when I say a first-time appointment, what I mean is that's either someone who we're going out on a sales to meet them from a sales situation, they're a prospect, and we've never met them before, or we're starting the process with them. Maybe we met them or did work for them, a year ago, but never got anywhere in terms of having them come on board to our recurring revenue. And now they've contacted us, we've contacted them, so that will be a first-time appointment. Does that make sense? Like we're going there with the intention of qualifying them and possibly starting the sales process. Is that definition clear?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Okay, and that's really important because it gets us to the next piece that you have to understand, which is close ratio. And we want to have a close ratio be something that is very objective. So that is, hey, how many of those, with that definition, how many first-time appointments do you go on in any given period, and how many new customers do you sign up? That would be a sale. And if we divide the number of sales by the number of first-time appointments, that's what we're going to term as our close ratio. And then the last thing is average MRR. This is the average monthly revenue per client. So how much on average, and you can figure out what your current average MRR is by taking your recurring revenue and dividing it by all the customers that make it up, the number of customers. That'll tell you, on average, what does a client pay me per month? And here's why these definitions are so critical, because this is the formula for generating more recurring revenue. Basically, your MRR sales or goal is equal to the number of first-time appointments times your close ratio times your average MRR. So how many people do I have to meet in order to actually close and get someone to sign an agreement? And then what is that agreement worth in terms of MRR? So what I want to do is I want to dissect the impact of close ratio and MRR first on sales, and then I'm also going to show you how it impacts your profitability. But whenever, Scott, you have, and this is not just in sales, we do the same thing when we teach how to increase margins. Anytime you have a formula that has 2 variables in it that you can impact, like this one has 3, but has 2 main variables that are massive. If you understand them both, you can affect both of them, you can magnify the results. In other words, obviously if you doubled your close ratio, it would be twice as easy. If you doubled your average, if you did both, it would be twice as easy twice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, based on my past experience, people often don't apply metrics to this kind of thing. A lot of MSPs, I feel, are going out there, they either win it or they don't. They move on without really taking a step back and looking at how that's contributed to the overall average of closes and what that means in the long term.
Yeah, most people don't even think about their average MRR, and they don't know or track their close ratio. So the two factors that impact how much they're going to be able to sell and how efficient their use of time is and what they should even be doing, they don't have their arms around it. And most of them, listen, today in True Methods community and coaching program, I work with 800 MSPs around the world, okay? Most of them, are small business people, right? Entrepreneurs like me. And so they want results, but they don't want to build a massive sales and marketing engine. And frankly, based on the margins in our business, we can't afford to, right?
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we have the right resources aimed in the right way so that we can be able to not just grow sales, but be able to grow cost effectively. So I want to show you this from three different perspectives. First is the impact of average MRR. So our sales goal is 36,000 of new MRR. We'll say that's our annual sales goal. We want to add 36,000, which should be, about the minimum, right, that you would want to add. Now, let's say your average client is $1,500 a month. Okay, so that's our average. That means that I would need to add 24 clients. If I have a 20% close ratio, to do that, I need 120 first-time appointments in a year. Okay. If my average is $2,500 a month with the same close ratio, I only need 15 clients. I just need 75 FTAs. And if you're where my MSP is, we're in that $3,500 to $3,700 average. I only need 11 clients to get the same 36K at 20%. With the same close ratio, I only need 55 first-time appointments in a year. What do you think I'm more likely to get? 55 FTAs in a year or 120?
Yeah, I think that one speaks for itself.
So let's go the other way now. Let's flip it, and let's look at the impact of your close ratio. So what I did here was I said I kept the same goal of 36,000, and I made everybody's average 2,500 in MRR. So everybody needs, all three of these companies need 15 new clients. So if you're at 20% close ratio, there's your 75 that you need. If you're 15% close ratio, you would need 100 FTAs, and if you're at 10%, which many people are, okay? Now some people say, hey, shouldn't your close ratio be 50%? And my answer is none of the top sales, the guys that really close consistently, 1, 2, 3 accounts per month, have a ratio of that high. To have a 50% or better close ratio, you have to get someone who's a perfect fit for you, and they have to be highly referred. And so that it's hard to scale that model, right? And keep, they got to be really ready to buy when you get there to be able to close 50% of the first time appointments you go on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think we both know that when we go into most of these customers, it's definitely not 50-50. They're definitely not so committed to what we're bringing in the door that they're ready to sign that day. So 50 is probably not super realistic.
Yeah, so most of the guys and gals that I know, top providers, if they're really doing this right, they get into that 20 and some even 25% range, and they're cruising, they're closing every month. All right, so I got one more slide I want to show you where I'm going to combine both of these variables to really show you the reality of where people live today. Okay, so in this slide, what I did was I showed the average MRR going from 1,500 to 2,500 to 3,500, and then I showed the close ratio increasing. And this is pretty accurate, Scott, because most of the time, the lower your monthly average, usually the lower your close ratio. And I think I'm going to explain to people why people that charge the most also sell the most and have a better close ratio. Also, the more FTAs you have to generate, usually the lower quality of them, okay? They're less warm, and that also moves. So those two factors create a situation that people that have to create more and have a lower MRR usually have a lower close rate. So now you see we want 36,000. 240 that's a lot of FTAs, okay? 55, that's 5, less than 5, it's 4 a month. That's much more doable, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, trying to get 240 even for, especially in smaller sales groups, would be basically a brand new, fresh, ready to go customer daily.
Yeah, exactly. And why would you want to go through all that cost to generate those, all of that windshield time, all of that to get the same 36,000? Now, the bottom line is usually people whose average is 1,500 and have a close ratio, they don't sell 30. They don't do it. They don't get those appointments, and they don't sell 36,000. They sell much less. So the point here is, and we're going to show it in different ways, but the impact of understanding these numbers and how you spend your time is going to really determine whether you're one of those people, when I ask that question, the few people in the room that raise their hand, or continue not to be able to raise your hand. So I think we've established that average MRR and close ratio are both really important factors, right? Because said another way, we want to sell the most recurring revenue with the fewest amount of first-time appointments, because there's a cost to generating leads, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so what impacts average MRR? Well, first thing is value proposition. If you can show, and we're going to talk about from a high level how to do this, if you can show a higher value to your managed service offering, your service offering, and you can just charge a higher price, that alone is going to raise your average MRR. If we can charge 30% more, our overall average customer, all things being equal, will be 30% higher. Second thing, set a minimum MRR. What I mean by that is, rather than saying we don't deal with anybody who has less than this amount of users, instead say, look, here's the minimum amount. And at my MSP, we started out at, like, when I first got there, my first MSP, we started out like 1,000 was our minimum. In my new MSP, when I got there 4 years ago, we set 1,500 as the minimum. Today, it's 2,000. So you can have 3 users. If you're willing to pay 2,000 a month and you see the value in it, we'll do business with you. And the reason the minimum is, when you start to take too many deals below your minimum, it pulls your averages down so dramatically that you not only can't you not reach your sales goals, but you're going to not reach your profitability goals, as I'm going to show you in a minute. So then the second thing is targeting the right prospects. So don't call everybody a prospect. If you know your minimum is 1,500 or 1,800, and in your model that means they have to have at least roughly 15 users, don't go see someone who has 10 unless they know you have a minimum, right? Don't spend your time on it. Don't call those people. Put them into do not fit. Okay. So you'll have less prospects, but you'll have more sales. Okay. Then close ratio. Again, value proposition I put up there. That's the common denominator here. If you can have a value proposition that not only allows you to charge a higher price, which helps your average MRR, but if you can create what I call separation. If you can start to separate what you sell from other MSPs or how they do things today, that is what's going to increase your close ratio. That's what gets you from 10 to 15 to 20 to 25%, is creating that, and I'm going to explain it to people, that separation. Next thing would be lead quality. Are they warm leads or cold leads? We're going to discuss that. And then, of course, sales process, doing things in the same way every time, so that if you're not getting the results you want, you can tweak the system. Look, this kind of shows here, not only impacting how important price is, or I'm going to say value. Let's call it value, the impact of value, because that's really what it is. It's one thing to say you should charge more. It's another thing to be able to present value in a way where people will pay more, okay? So these are 2 MSPs, the green and the white. One of them, and they both have 50 customers at an average of 20 seats, so they're both managing 1,000 seats. One of them is at $140 average seat price. So their average MRR is $2,800, and they have $140,000 of monthly recurring revenue. The bottom MSP in white, they're at $95 average seat price. So now their average MRR is $1,900. So right off the bat, they're almost $1,000 less average just because of price, and we know how that impacts your sales numbers, right? That's one of our key metrics. But look how it affects their profitability. They have $45,000 less per month to manage the same 1,000 seats. So value, the same thing that makes your sales goals achievable, also has a dramatic impact on your profitability. Isn't it great when you can change one thing and impact two huge things that change your life?
Absolutely.
So your value proposition is, what is the value of your MSP offering, and can you separate that offering from others? Hey, Gary, your price is $1,000 more per month than the other two vendors that we're looking at. What gives? Love a skeptical prospect. So, Scott, I'm going to say, me personally, I've been on well over, I don't know, 1,000 to 1,500 sales calls personally in the industry, and probably between my salespeople at my first MSP and my current MSP, it's much higher than that, right?
Yeah.
In almost every scenario, two things were true when I walked in the door. One, they told me they were fine. Two, once I showed them they weren't fine, they almost always had to spend more with me than what they were spending, or compared to the other vendors that they were looking at, to do business with me. And so, when I ask people, what would you do in this situation where they say, hey, we really like you, you did a great job, but like you're 25% more, you're $4,000 a month, everybody. So I ask people, well, how do you answer that? Well, we tell them that we have better people, and we're trusted by our customers, and we're this. And what I say to them is, well, what do you think the competitor is saying? Listen, just so you know, our customers don't really trust us that much, and we don't really have that much experience. No one's saying that, right? They're saying the same thing. And so I want to give you the first part of this logic, and then with our content in the next half hour, I want to show you how I answer it. But the first thing the logic I would give is, listen, if you're looking at three of us and we're $1,000 a month more than the other two, and you think that you can choose any of the three vendors and get the exact same results, the answer is you shouldn't do business with us. You shouldn't spend $1,000 more. Why would you spend $1,000 more to get the same results? In fact, I don't think I would spend $1 more. Is that what you think today? And normally what they'll say to you is, but they wouldn't have asked a question if they didn't like you. So normally what they'll say is, well, we do think you can help us more, but that's still a lot of money. So what that says is, we're attaching some value to what you've presented, but you didn't go far enough, Gar. And if you can go further, and then maybe I'll look at that $1,000 differently. And that's what we're going to show people how to do. And I call this being a value-based MSP or value-based pricing. To my members, I teach something I call the value stack, where we actually show them a pyramid of how they increase value and some math underneath it to get there. But I want to give people the general concept of it, because you can make changes just with the concept. So a technology-based price is value built on features, tools, and support. In other words, it's you trying to say that you can do the things that everybody should be expected to do well. I can pick up a phone better. I can back up a computer better. I can do the things that everybody else, and I can do it better. It's hard to convince somebody of that, and even if they're in severe pain, and you do convince them, they're not always willing to pay more for technology-based pricing. But if you can move to value-based pricing, where your value is built on how what you do impacts their business, then we can change it. I call it reframing or creating separation, because we can show them that our approach is going to impact the big costs in their business. When you make this paradigm shift, the conversations that you have, they change dramatically. So what's up on the screen here? These are two green dots. That's green, right? They're green?
Yeah, they are.
Okay. Okay. They're the same size, Scott, right? But this comes from the book Predictably Irrational, about value and pricing. But the one on the left looks bigger because it's surrounded by relatively smaller blue dots. That dot is your price. That's your support offering. That's what you charge per month. When you surround it by smaller dots, like in my example, I'm $4,000 a month and the competitor is $3,000 a month, it looks massive, right? It looks huge. But if I can start to surround that by bigger blue dots, and in our business that would be, how does what they spend with us impact their business results? How does it impact their risk, their productivity, the way their people use technology, their ability to generate and run a better business based on how they view technology? We can change the conversation dramatically. Here's the point that people miss and why this is so powerful. We are a very small cost, Scott, to our customers. Someone who's going to spend $3,000 or $4,000 a month with us, they usually have between $200,000 and $500,000 a month in payroll and overhead in their business. Okay, so whether we're $3,000 or we're $4,000, if we can impact those big costs, if they saw it in that way, they don't really care so much about $1,000 a month. Now, how do I know that? Well, because almost every sale that I had, and I've sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of recurring revenue, I don't know that I can think of one where we were less. There might have been one or two, but we almost always had to have this conversation. So I know that when you change the way they look at it, and this is why people who say, well, in my marketplace, we charge X, we could never charge Y. Yeah, you can't if you're viewing it that way and you're out there competing with competitors and everyone's viewing it the same way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and this is what I see across our MSP partnership in many cases, especially with new people coming into our world. Everybody thinks they're having a unique conversation with their prospects, but really a lot of people are having the exact same conversation, exactly the one you've described here. They're very much speaking on a technology level. We'll do patch, we'll do AV, we'll do backup, and we'll do it better than the last guy. Unfortunately, that's what the last guy said, so you have a perfect point here.
That is it, man. So here's an analogy that I'm famous for, right? Which is the chocolate cake analogy. And basically, what this says is, grocery stores are they're commodities. So they sell all the same stuff on the shelves. You're not going to pay, $1.50 for a $99 can of beans. You're just not going to do it. That's why they're a high volume, low margin business. But bakeries, they have the same ingredients as well, but they combine them into their unique recipe, their chocolate cake. So, I don't know about you, Scott, but when we have birthdays, I drive past 3 bakeries to get to the bakery my wife tells me to go to get that birthday cake. Okay? And I don't care whether it's $30 or $35, makes no difference. That's the birthday cake. So think about your business. Are you a reseller? You may say you're an MSP, but really, if you're honest, are you a reseller? Are you selling all of these ingredients? Pat, spy, spam, virus, support, cloud features. Are you selling ingredients, or are you combining them? I call it your superpower. That's your recipe. Are you combining those things, bundling them, and wrapping your process that you can show a customer how you apply it differently and how all of those things combined with your superpower are going to impact their business in a way that someone who's selling ingredients can't? If you can start to think in this way, you can make massive changes in the conversations that you have from people, and you can eliminate prices objection. Listen, most people, when I meet them, they come into our coaching program. When they get into a sales situation and it's going well, and the prospect likes them, they uncover some pain, and they're nodding their head. I call them, they're giving them the bobblehead. Yeah, sounds good. Then they get to the price part, and when the people say, "Wow, man, that's like $500 a month or $1,000 more than we spend now," they get nauseous. They're like, "Oh no, not again." When I get there and they tell me that, I get excited, okay? Because I know that one of two things are going to happen. I'm going to explain to them how they need to look at what they invest and what they get in a different kind of way. If they do, there's a really good chance I'm going to close them. If they don't, I can't find the door fast enough, right? I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to spend all my time and focus on the people that understand our concept. Which, by the way, they're the people that value technology.
Yeah, I've found those are the people who you can really kind of build a technology and business partnership with. The folks who are more interested in just grabbing as many ingredients as they can for the lowest price are not really interested in that. They're more interested in just satisfying the checkbox on their list of I need antivirus.
And the first time one thing goes wrong, and it will, they'll jump to somebody else.
Absolutely.
Right. Because like you said, they're seeing the value in the stuff that every single person who comes in says they can do better. It's like I'm reduced to saying, well, no, we answer phones better than other people. So when you think about your support offering, this is our value. One, focus on that end result. Think about if you went to someone and they said to you, look, Gary, you're a friend of mine, right? It's your neighbor. And he says to you, look, I trust you, man. Whatever you tell me you have to charge me, just charge me. I want it right. I want my people productive. I don't want them having issues. I want to reduce the amount of times I have to call you. I want to make sure that I don't have risk, that I'm secure, that I want to be able to run my business. You would take all of these things if they gave you carte blanche. You charge them the right amount so you had the right people and process and technology and time to deliver that and be sure you did, and that's what you would charge them. That's what you should charge everybody, Scott. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, instead of them sometimes telling us, like, well, that sounds good, but can you charge me less? We just renewed our antivirus or backup. We want to use our own. The answer, how you answered that question, tells you where you are, whether you are a technology-based provider or a value-based provider. If the answer is, oh yeah, go ahead, you can still use your backups or your antivirus or whatever it is, since you just paid for it. My answer is, well, no, it wouldn't lower your price, and it's not just what you use, because you don't really want antivirus. You don't want viruses. And it's not the product that does that, it's our process and the fact that all 1,500 of our end users, we manage them in the same way, and we have best practices built to check the way we do it. That's why none of our customers have had a virus for the last 5 years. Do you want the end result? Because that's what they want. They're viewing it, well, I just spent that money, I could save money. And you're teaching them how to look at it differently and saying, no, it's not that you want, or it's expensive. You want the end result, and so you want me to apply 100% my way. You want to invest, and if you get those results in every aspect, do you really care whether we're $500 a month more in the big scheme of things, right? So create a true competitive advantage. We call it, what we teach our members, and we tell them how to build their superpower. Create a true competitive advantage that you can separate yourself, where they would look and they're looking at the current vendor, one other vendor, and then on the side, completely separate, they're looking at you and how you're going to impact their business. To do that, you're going to have to limit choices and options. So just by the definition of what we're talking about here, there can't be 10 different ways. You can't let them pick and choose from 4 different options and 8 offerings and 8 different options. And how are you going to tell them that? And then on the other side, tell them, no, you need to spend this. Here's all the time and process and technology we need to get those results. And then tell them, but I'll sell you half of it if that's what you want. Okay, and that's a big change. Tells you how mature you are in this process. I see people that they have, bronze, silver, gold, pewter, tin, with or without virus, with or without backup, with or without this. And I say, well, which is the right one? Which is the one that, like, those customers, they're your best customers, and you're helping them in a way that they know that the business is better. Well, this one, why do you have all the rest? And that's what people will buy. I'm like, well, you're not selling that much, right? So, again, this leads to maybe less sales, but the right customers at the right price. Efficiency in sales, efficiency in margins. This is how you achieve financial independence in this business, right? And so a lot of that means bundling services and then wrapping your superpower around that bundle to create that separation. So, I mean, look, let's talk about Enable for a second, because let's use that as an example of one thing that, like, right, everybody should have bundled in terms of what you're doing with RMM and support, right, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you want to see is a comprehensive package that is all inclusive. And I think you and I have both seen in probably previous dealings, if you take the wrong customers, you will ultimately regret it, because those folks who are looking for just the lowest number are also tend to be the loudest and most troublesome environments. So here we want to make sure that we're kind of keeping a bundle of packages that satisfies all the kind of comprehensive needs in that environment. We've got something like MSP Anywhere that's going to provide excellent remote support to our customers. We're going to couple that with MSP Manager. That's going to give us the ability to offer ticketing, customer portal, and customer management options. And then we're going to wrap that in and kind of pull it all together with the RMM and Central, which is going to give us monitoring, management, automation, and it's going to tie into those two previous systems. So we have sort of the entire environment covered top to bottom and all wrapped in a really solid process and a really nice automation tool.
And listen, ultimately, monitoring, automation, all the things, with N Central, they're they're table stakes today. So if you want to build value, it's kind of the center of that technology, on the technology stack side. So you start with that, you add some other things right around backup and some cloud features and security and those kind of things, and then you wrap your superpower around that, and that's where you go and can start to charge, separate yourself, where you can charge 20, 30, 40% more. So look at it, when you're out selling recurring services on a one-off, maybe you can get 20, 30, 40, even 50% gross margins. But when you wrap them and your services around them, we target with a managed service offering 70 to 75% gross margins. Big difference.
Yeah, and of course on our side, we're going to say, the technology's great, but you're right, wrapping it around a full package is important, and something like N-Central that'll help you deliver all of those extra services in an automated fashion will make you as an MSP more efficient and still allow you to bring a package that you're not going to see across every person walking through the door into your customer.
Okay, so they can just go to enable.com and they can sign up for a free trial. So if you're not using Enable today, I'm going to suggest that you go and check out that free offer. Enable.com. When you talk about building that competitive advantage, or we term it your superpower, your service offerings explain how you deliver different business results. In other words, look at your support offering today. How much of it is the stuff that you should have? First off, you should have everything on this list, right? And a lot of the top stuff here, we talked about what you're doing with Enable, but you have to have it. But how much of your offering is just that? And how much of it is that superpower, your unique approach, what you wrap around it with your best practices, and how you do your ongoing standardization, the process you use, helping customers with their business strategy around technology. So how much of it is those line items or technology, and how much of it is what you wrap around it? That's a good start to look at where you are today compared to where you need to be.
And this is how I explain it to members of my coaching program. You want to think of it in this way. They have some results they get in their business today. And it comes from whoever the vendor is and the current process that they use. We have our process. We're calling it your superpower. Okay, that's our process. And it gets some results. We don't want to compare their process to our process, at least not at first. What we want to do is we want to compare the results they get today to the results that our customers get. Because, Scott, they assume that certain things happen to everybody. They assume that, well, everybody gets a virus sometime. Well, everybody has, this many support tickets per month. No, they don't. There's different results. And so in the sales process, we teach how to break it up into two pieces. First, look, here's the results you're getting. That's uncovering pain. Then we show them what it would look like if that pain was to go away. That's our results. Then we have them attach a value. Look, if you knew that to be true, we didn't tell you how we would do it yet, but assuming that, would you make a change from your vendor to us if you were guaranteed that these 5 things that you talked about were an issue? Okay, great. Now let me ask you this. We're $500 a month more. If you knew again for sure that you would get from where you are to where we're talking about, would it make sense for you to invest $500 a month more? If they say yes to those 2 questions, then we can explain our process, and all we got to do is prove to them that our superpower and the way that we approach to business delivers those results. But what most people do is just try to compare the line items of what their current process or technology is to what they do. And the customer, they can't separate the impact on results. Are you with me on this, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense.
Awesome. So here's what happens. I got a member, right? Calls me up, said, Gary, we just closed a sale for $3,000. And we were there a year ago, and I bid $1,800, and they said no, they didn't see the value. I said, well, what changed? He's like, I did. He's like, I went in there, and I talked about where they were with their business and where they could be and what that pain was. And I asked them how valuable it was for them to get from where they were to where I was describing. Once I did, it was easy to show them. And he goes, I got in my car, and it's like the skies opened up, and I said to myself, holy mackerel, it's easier to sell the right value at the right price than it is to sell the wrong service offering at the wrong price. And I said, well, I've been telling you that on webinars twice a month for over a year. He's like, I know, but I didn't believe you. So sometimes people have to prove it to themselves, right, in order to get there. And so this is somebody who, when I met him 4 years ago, they were at like $92 a seat, and today they sell at $150. And it's that in the same marketplace when they said they couldn't do it. So, all right, let's get into a couple specifics. So one, you got to set goals. Set an annual MRR goal. Then use close ratio and average MRR to determine what you can do to have the least amount of FTAs possible so you can increase your chances, right? Use those two factors, how you're going to impact those factors. Then focus on building your value or your superpower, and then work on building warm leads, and I'm going to tell you about that process. This is what you need to do. Here's a sales goal calculator we use in our training program. So if you want to sell $30,000 of new MRR and your average MRR is 2,500, your close ratio is 20%, that's about one client a month. So you need 60 FTAs a year, about 5 a month, or about 1 a week. So for most people, with some of the things that we're going to talk about in the next couple slides, everyone can get that far and further. In my current MSP now, we're 4 years into this, so we're a little further down the line and a little bit more mature, like with some of these things. But we're about 3/4 away right through the year, and we've closed 72,000 of monthly recurring revenue so far. And we started from a dead stop, right, 4 years ago with our sales process. So it works. But you need warm leads. Okay, cold leads are people that you meet that they don't even have a need or might not be a fit. Warm leads have some need, they're better, but the best lead is returning prospects, people you met with in the past and didn't sell for whatever reason, probably our fault, and you stayed in contact with them, but they know a lot about you and you know they're a good fit. When they re-engage you, they're usually ready to buy. So we want to build a process that gets us in front of as many returning prospects as possible. So you got to view your sales database, your prospect list, like this, like a funnel. At the top are people that we know very little about and they know little about us. At the bottom are the people that were referred to us and we're working with them right now. But it's this center, prospects that we know more about and know about us. And then those best prospects, I call them the warm 250, the ones that we really feel like they're an awesome fit for us. And we just got to get the right situation. If we stay in contact with them, we're going to get them. You got to build that warm piece in there, right? The people, because most people who don't sell a lot, they have 1 or 2 people that are hot, and then they got a bunch of people at the top of the funnel and nothing in the center. So warm lead generation sources. 1, COIs or centers of influence. This is huge. You need to find people in your marketplace. I like entrepreneurs because I get on the same page with them. It's like other small businesses that are aggressively trying to grow their business, and they have the same target market as we do. So they deal with the same person, like an owner or C-level executive. Their sweet spot is 20 to 60 user companies. And if I find those 2 things and they're aggressively trying to grow their business, there's someone that we can start to exchange who can learn what a qualified lead looks like for each other. And this is huge. So when I got to my MSP, I had our young president. He had to be in front of 1 new potential center of influence every week. That's a lot.
Gary.
Right? Yeah.
Hey, Gary, Tracy here. We have a quick question coming in from Hassan. And he'd like to know if you have some basic value-based examples He goes on to say that it's better. You mentioned that it's better to base on value than technology, but he understands that a lot of MSPs help their clients based on technology, and he's getting ready to make the switch from break fix to an MSP. So I think his question's pretty interesting and probably more than a simple answer, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's a bigger answer. We've done some stuff on packaging and pricing where we talk about it, in detail. But I'll give you the concept on it, which we started to allude to, is that I see two pieces to it. First, deciding what all of those pieces of technology are, converting them to some common denominator of cost. We use cost per seat, okay? And that way we know, and then add to that the unique part, the superpower, the process around how we're going to implement that. Not just support, but the process, how we implement those tools and our standards, our best practices, those kind of things. And then turn that into a cost per seat. And when you do that, then you can say, okay, well, my average cost per seat is $36. If I charge, $125, I'll have 70%, roughly gross margins. And so I think it's doing it. What we teach in the process is step by step. Another thing that we teach that helps is we have you break it down into quadrants. So what do you want to deliver centrally? That's your centralized services. Like the heart of that is Enable, your RMM. And then what do you want to do around your best practices in terms of network administration and best practices? And what do you want to do around VCIO or consulting? And then let's take a look at your support. So we break it into 4 quadrants, so it organizes it for us and also organizes it for prospects where they see the value than just a long list, Tracy, of things that they can't compare to somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much, Gary. And I just had one more point. You're talking about warm lead generation sources and centers of excellence. How do you feel about, as an MSP, joining places like the Chamber of Commerce or your Business Improvement Association? I know here in Canada we have various technology associations. And you can find some of the startups there. You can find some of the more established companies like Nokia or some of the other bigger telcos there. How do you feel about those as potential sources of leads and sources of contacts?
So the things you're talking about, you got to be very careful. So I have some people that have done very well with their Chamber of Commerce. They speak in front of it. Others that have found it a waste of time because they weren't getting the right targets. So what I would say is try these things. But if you're not getting from that over some reasonable time frame if there's not enough of the right target prospects, then don't go back. If there are, then keep going with it. And that's what it's like even with centers of influence and why I have us meet with so many. You have to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince.
Sounds
does
like
that make
dating.
sense? Yeah, it does. So let me tell you one thing about COIs, and then we'll keep moving here, okay? Here's a great way to find a center of influence. Go to your best customers, the ones that you love the most, that you wish you had more of, and they love you, and ask your contact, the president or the CFO, hey, who else do you deal with that you think is as awesome as us? There's a good chance if they feel that strongly about someone else the way they feel about you and your business relationship, they might be a good match for you, okay? Then we, get with those people and have a conversation about what they do, how they could benefit. And in the beginning, you don't even have to put them in front of your customers. You can give them some prospects that you met with so that it's low risk for you until you build that up. But we have a handful of them we have one that we get probably 6 deals a year just from one of our centers of influence. So it's massive. And the same thing with referrals. What we do is, in the beginning, I had our president meet with one of our customers, and what he did was afterwards, he'd say, hey, thanks for meeting with me. By the way, I was looking through your LinkedIn. I saw these 3 or 4 people that you're linked in with. Do you actually know any of them, and would you mind making an introduction? And the customers would always say, yeah, sure, I know 2 of them. And he would email back a pre-cut thing that all he had to do was cut and paste it, and in 5 seconds he could help us and not take up a lot of his time and not have to put it on his to-do list. So we find it easy ways of getting in front of warm people. And then later, I coach, right now in my coaching program, we have a program you can do called Inside Sales Champions, where we have 100 inside salespeople in MSPs around the world that we have as part of a community. that you can add this, where you have somebody on the phone every day working on this database, following up with people, calling new people, making sure you're categorizing people, and getting you in front of an extra 3 or 4 people, FTAs, every single week. So here's one more story. I got one of my customers calls me and said, "Hey, I just signed a deal for 2,200." And I said, "That's great." He goes, "Well, you don't understand. I went out and saw the guy last Wednesday. It was a referral." And the guy says to me, "Hey, man, that sounds great. Come back on Friday with my partners here and pick up the signed agreement." He goes back, and the guy comes out and says, "Oh, man, we got a problem. My partner met with someone who's referred, and they could do the same thing for $1,500 or less." He said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "Well, I want you to tell me my partner again. I'm going to let you meet him, how great you are, because I think you're better, and then we're going to think about it for the weekend." And my member said, "Well, maybe you don't have to wait till next week, because either you don't need $2,200 support, you only need $1,500 support, and you should just go buy it and enjoy the weekend, or you think you can get $2,200 support for $1,500. Which is it?" And he said the prospect stared at him and said, "I'm not sure which." He went in, he met with the partner, and he walked out with a signed agreement for $2,200. So what did he do in that meeting that he didn't do in the first one? He stopped telling them how great he was and all his technology. He talked about what their business results would be. Once he got an agreement on what they would look like, he showed them why they had to make the right investment and the right process and superpower to get there. That's what this business is all about.
And Gary, this is Tracy again. And I think that speaks to a statement that one of the attendees made, that knowing your customer, knowing the prospect, knowing what their pain points are, what their business needs are, will really help you accelerate the sale and can help you upsell and cross-sell a bit as well.
Absolutely. I saw another. You know what? I see some other questions you want to get to. Let me just get through these last couple slides, and then I'll stay on a couple extra minutes. And we got a lot of questions, and I'll stay on to answer. That sound fair?
Absolutely.
Okay. So MSP efficiency, average MSPs, and that was me in the beginning, okay, spend too much energy to get mediocre results in sales. Well, in other areas, but we're talking about sales today. So based on some of the math we talked about, they create a long road to success. In fact, it's so long that they never get to the end of it. They never reach financial independence in their business because of it. And if you can focus on value proposition to dramatically impact both your close ratio and your average MRR. Scott, you got a choice. You can have business A or B. The first business is a $3 million a year business in revenue, or the second business is $1.2 million in revenue. With just that information, which business would you rather be given?
Well, Gary, I personally like money, so I think I'll go for number 1.
Okay, so now let me give you some more information. They run at 10% net profit because they're in front of the wrong customers at the wrong price. So their profit is $300,000 a year. The little engine that could at $1.2 million, they're using the principles we talked about today. They have 25% net profit. They make $300,000 a year. Now, which business do you want?
Well, I definitely want the second one because I think I can grow that obviously over time into something that's going to be good for me and more profitable.
Absolutely. This is where we are in this business, okay? And as we showed this slide earlier, when you get the right value and you can command the right price, you not only generate the sales and grow recurring revenue, but you massively impact your margins. Same amount of endpoints, $45,000 more a month, probably more than that to the bottom line because they run a better, less noisy business. Because they can afford to. This is where you have to get to, okay? And if you focus on the right few things around that value proposition and who you focus on, you not only can solve the sales issue, but as a byproduct, you get massive improvements in your margins. And that's really what my message is and what we try to teach our members at True Methods. At any revenue level, regardless of what it is, you want the fewest number of clients, the fewest number of endpoints managed, the fewest reactive tickets, and the fewest employees at any given revenue level. That's how you achieve efficiency. And you have to understand what are the things we do, what are the 4 or 5 things, and we touched on 2 or 3 of them today in this webinar, but what are the 4 or 5 things, and if I just focus on those, will give me these kind of results. So here's what you need to do, and what we try to help people do. Define the most efficient plan in detail with those minimums that will get you there. Then, based on that, you're going to have to build your value to match your plan. Maybe you don't have that value today, but if you understand it, you can build it above where it is today, and then over maybe the next year, because it's not just a sales technique. You actually have to build that value in what you deliver. But once you know that's it, you can have your value match your plan. Then you can increase both sales and profitability, and there's never been a better time to do it. There is more recurring revenue being sold at a higher price today than ever before. So, hey, Scott, we got a few more minutes. I'm just going to tell people one thing about True Methods, and then we're going to answer all the questions that are up on the board, as many of them as we can.
Sounds good.
So this is what we do, why people do business with us. We help you build a true value or superpower so that you can develop that sales separation, build recurring revenue, dramatically increase your margins, and most importantly, as entrepreneurs who take all this risk, be able to achieve financial independence for all the hard work and risk that you put into this business. Again, I've been in it long enough to know it's not for the faint of heart. And the way we do it is through a subscription program we have and a portal that we built that has training, it has community, and it has tools and templates. So you come in, we take you through an onboarding process, and really right through completing your business plan, calibrating the key metrics and smart numbers in your business, working on that value or packaging and pricing, start to have you work on increasing that value. We call that develop your superpower. Then start to implement some basic sales discipline and some warm leads so that the combination of those things are going to raise your expectations about where you can be. So normally that onboarding process is $1,500, and our monthly fee is $399. So what we're doing for Enable is we are waiving that up front and lowering that $399 to $329. So we're month to month, $329 a month. So I mentioned the 800 people that we work with around the world, some of them since 2009, that are nice enough to allow us to charge their credit card every month. They do it because they think they're better with us than without us. So if you'd like to give us a try or learn more, the first 10 people that email gary.promo@truemethods.com, that's gary.promo@trumethods, no E in true, trumethods.com, with the subject line, sign me up. We will get you this. Now, Scott, the last webinar we did, we got a few more than 10 people, right? So what we're going to do is, anyone who emails us, we will honor this. It's just that we have limited onboarding spots, so it may take to get started. We might have to, it might be a week or two, or some time period. But we will honor more than 10. But the first 10 we can get started, right now. They can go right into onboarding their slots, and as they open up, we will accommodate everybody because the response has been awesome. Okay.
All right, and speaking from experience, sitting down and trying to come up with the kinds of things you're talking about here as an independent organization internally is a really big uphill climb, and certainly going straight to the source, hearing your webinars, having access to your kind of content makes that a much easier growth transition in my experience.
And you guys got great partners. So in the time we've been working together, we've now worked with so many more Enable partners, and they're awesome in terms of what they want to do and how they learn. We know they have the right technology in place. So that part has been that part's been really great. We want our goal is to have people, business owners, spend their time implementing, not figuring out. Right?
Sure.
Knowing the most efficient things to do for sales and profits, and getting them to prioritize those things, and helping them with accountability every quarter. So. All right, we got some great questions.
Yeah, there are some excellent questions in here, Gary. And I think we should kind of start at the top of the funnel. And we have a question here from Chris, and he wants to know, what would you say is the most effective way to identify new prospects who could become qualified leads?
Okay, so I use a couple different methods. One, like I mentioned, I love centers of influence. I'd rather have other people do it for me. So if I can get other people to do my work for me, that's always great. The second thing is, if you like, I don't like being totally verticalized because I think that creates some risk. But if you have some good customers in some verticals, that's a good place to look. Like we do well with nonprofits, we do well with engineering and architecture and manufacturing. Go find the people that deal with them. So one of our people, we're in nonprofits, we found the people that are the distributor or the dealer for the main software they all use, and they have so many prospects like that. They have great relationships that are exactly right for us. So try to find those links of who are the people that are dealing with the people that you want to deal with. And then the other thing we do is we'll use Hoovers or other things. We'll buy lists, but that's because we have inside sales and we can work those colder lists to warm them up over time and increase it. So long term, that can make the most impact in the number of them, but in the short term, you want to find those people where they live so that you can get them quicker and they're more qualified and less expensively.
And I think another good source of leads as well is using your own customers as referrals. So if you have, for example, 15 doctors and 10 dentist offices as customers, start a program where you can say, if you give me the names of some of your colleagues and they turn into customers, I'll give you, $200 free this month, or whatever incentive you want to use. I know we have a referral program here for our existing customers that if they refer someone to us who becomes a customer, there's an incentive for them down the road once the deal is signed. I think that's a great way because you already know then how to sell into that vertical and what that customer's likely pain points are going to be.
Yeah, that's great, and I'll tell you, if you use that LinkedIn process, they don't really care about even the money you give them. They want to help you, and they want you to like them. They just can't think of anybody at that time. So if you can look at their link in with them and look at their contacts and pick out a handful that you would like, they'll tell you, oh, I don't know them and them. I do know those two. And then say, okay, well, can you just email them this and see if you can, and they make the introduction. And they do it right there, and they make it easy. We probably doubled or tripled our referrals instead of doing big massive things, just by making it easier for them to present to them who they might know, because they're willing to help. They just don't always know how, and if they don't think of somebody right there, Trace, they're on to the next thing. They're busy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually over the top of the hour now, Gary, and there's one question left that I really would like you and Scott maybe to discuss a little bit before we conclude today, and that's what happens if you're in a market that doesn't have many clients that can pay $2,000 a month.
Well, listen, I get that question a lot because we got people. Look, I'm lucky enough that we work with some of the top MSPs and some of the top markets, but we work with a ton of smaller people in tertiary markets. And if you think about it, what it means is you really have to have this math dialed in. And everybody has some people that have between 10 and 20 users in there. And so maybe you won't get to $3,500 a month average, but can you, if you're 1,000 now, can you get to 1,500 or 2,000? If you can make everything twice as easy and twice as profitable as you are today. So I think it requires really dialing in that plan. Look, I got people in markets where there's 100,000 total population or less, and they have $100,000 a month at the right price. And so Scott, the other thing I found is you think there's nobody in your market, but there is like 3 to 4 times as many prospects you could do business with than are on any list you can find. You just have to work to find them. Don't you find the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that's important to keep in mind is when you go after these smaller customers, there's always a certain level of overhead in your MSP, regardless of the size of these customers. You still have the help desk, you still have your tools, you still have all those things going on in the background in the sales cycle that regardless of the size of customer, you're going to do anyway. So when you take these smaller customers, be aware that you're likely getting more headaches and putting in just as much effort in many cases with these guys as you would the bigger customers. So you really have to evaluate whether it's worth going to that level.
Trace, I know we're over. If we didn't get to your question, I'm happy to answer them. If they want to send it to Gary.promo, we'll make sure we get answers to stuff. But I know we're over. Can I just answer one more question because I can't resist it?
Absolutely.
Well, you went to a new business and they simply told you that they're fine with their current provider. How did you manage to make them understand they were not fine? Can you give an example? Yeah, let me give an example. This is what happens. Everyone you go to, look, the first question I ask them is, how much are you spending today? And as soon as I know that they have 30 users and they're spending, $1,500 or $2,000 a month, I already know they're not fine. They're not spending enough to be fine. So now I start to pick and ask questions, and everything you say, their first reaction is fine. So one example would be I ask them, hey, so you got 20 people here, 10 people in the field using laptops. Everybody's on technology all day long, really important. How's performance? And they usually say, fine. Now, what if I ask it in a different way? So let me ask you got these people here in the field, depending on technology, what does your current vendor do? Like when things slow down over time, those laptops especially, how does your current vendor deal with it? Oh, we just put in a ticket, we set up a time, they come in, they run some tools, they clean some stuff up, and we're good. Okay, now I know they're not fine. They have a different definition. Well, let me ask you a question. Do your people wait till they absolutely have to before they break the glass and give up their laptop for an hour or two? Yeah, I guess they do. Well, what would happen if those machines ran at the same level of performance from the time you got them until the time they were ready to cycle out? Would that have any impact on your people, your productivity? Yeah, I think it would. Well, look, we're $500 a month more. If you knew you could get those results, but it was going to cost you $500, would you make a change? The answer might be yes, in which case we're doing well. It might be no, which is also good to know. Most of the time it's maybe, and that means they attach the value, and if I find 2 or 3 other things like that, then we have changed the way they look at what they spend and what they get. Boom. That's what we're talking about.
It's as simple as that. Gary, it has been a great pleasure to work with you. I really appreciate all the time and effort that you give to our customers and anybody who's interested in the subject matter. And thank you as well, Scott, for stepping in this morning and assisting in the webinar. Thank you, everybody, and I wish everyone a very great day.